Get out the insurance cards, get out the co-pays. The office is open, my friends, as this video is brought to you by drroto.com.
Oh, good morning, my friends. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning from Michigan and a hotel room in Chicago where my friend Adam White is hanging out. And it is PGA Championship week. We're ready to break this down. drroto.com. What you want to do today, buddy? You want to talk golf?
I thought we were having fireside chats with Adam. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's fine by me too. That's fine by me too. It looks like it's 3 a.m. in Chicago right now is what it looks like.
Looks like I got a good dark, blackout window thing.
Absolutely love it. Well, sir, I have moved up 2 consecutive weeks in our private tournament, and I am feeling good. I am feeling great. It is a 1.5 point multiplier in our league this week, and I need to make up some ground, sir. So let's skip last week. I'm over it already. I'm on to this week. We're on a time crunch. We're going to get this done. Tell us all about this course.
Let's review a little bit what you just said. You're climbing the ranks. I need to make up some ground too. I'm very good at giving advice and giving good plays and not necessarily putting them in my lineups, but that's going to change this week. I've learned my lesson. Yeah, this one is near and dear to my heart. The PGA Championship run by the PGA of America. My pops himself has been a member for almost 45 years. It literally put food on my table when I was a kid. And, I love this event. I remember watching it back in 97 when Davis Love III won it. His dad was a PGA pro. There was a rainbow on the 18th green. Well, over the 18th green, not on the green. And, it was a very emotional moment. But that's kind of when I fell in love with this event. The interesting thing that I kind of dug deep into is how the winning score and the setup the PGA of America creates for this event has changed really over the last 5 years. So before the last 5 years, the winning score disparity between the two tournaments in the last 10 years was like 70 some strokes, right? Like 7 strokes a year. In the last 5 years, the winning score combined cumulative of these two events is the exact same at 41 under par. That actually includes two events. Yeah, so it's getting very, very tight. So what that made me do was kind of look at the setup of each event a little more closely. I think the U.S. Open is a good indicator of who can succeed at a PGA, whereas it maybe wasn't before. So just an interesting nugget there. As we look at the course, we are in Louisville, Kentucky, not Louisville. It's Louisville. And it's the PGA Championship. It's just over 7,600 yards, par 71. We got 3 par 5s. This might sound like a broken record, but just like many past weeks in the past 4 to 6, we've got a lot of long par 4s and longish par 3s, leading to a lot of approach shots between 175 and 250. So that's certainly going to be factored in when looking at our guys and who we like. We've seen a couple PGAs here, some pretty epic ones, really. Rory, Ricky, and Phil contended here in 2014, played the final hole in the dark, like hit their tee shots when the guys were still in the fairway. And then Tiger won here to get the third leg of his Tiger Slam over Bob May in a playoff, where he famously walked after his putt and pointed at it on the 16th hole, I think it was. So we've had some great championships here. Hopefully it leads to a close one this week. But you're definitely looking for guys that can keep it and play off the tee. We got some thick rough out there, about 4 inches.
It's thick.
It's thick. They're having a hard time hacking out of it. And you definitely want a player with complete long game tee to approach shot, because there are going to be some guys that blow up on this course. We don't like the short hitters this week. But I think it's going to be a great week. Winning score should be right around the 10 under mark. If it does get softer in the fairways and the greens don't soften up too much, you might even see that dip down to like 7 or 8 under. So setting up to be a pretty good week. We got a lot of good storylines that aren't necessarily fantasy golf related, but I'm pretty excited. We got Scotty with his dad swag. We got John Rahm talking trash, saying he's still a PGA Tour member when he's not. Rory just won last week and then filed for divorce the next day. Like there's some storylines going on, buddy.
Wild stuff. But really, let's start off with the news of the day. Why did Arnold Schwarzenegger start killing bugs after he retired?
This is a golf podcast. What is that?
Because he was an ex-Terminator.
Dude, can we get to this?
All right, let's jump right in, man. This is the question of the year, right? To Scotty or not to Scotty at 13-2. 13-2. $1,200 full dollars above Rory. I got to say, man, you know how I like to run the value, per point score, per dollar spent on a player. And yet again, here he is, 13-2 at the very top of the list of value plays per point per dollar, even priced so high.
Yeah, I think it was only like maybe three events ago that he played when I wrote up Scotty and said, he's 12,000, but he should be 13,000 and probably will be before long. And the very next week he was. And yet he still is one of the most likely to 10x his salary, which is insanity.
Crazy.
I think you would be foolish not to play him this week.
Adam, let me put it this way, Adam. I have him 20% higher projected score than the next closest person.
That's insane. Like, that is the gap that would make you go, okay, I kind of have to play Scotty this week. Yep. I think the way the course sets up with these long par fours we've talked about, the par fives, at least two of them are reachable. Third one, maybe it's close to 600 yards, but with the wind direction not being into him, they should be able to reach it. But I think with his game, like, he might get, I don't want to say overlooked. He's obviously the number one player in the world playing the best golf since Tiger, but I think people might try and talk themselves out of him because Rory just won last week in pretty crazy fashion, had a phenomenal Sunday. He just had a baby. People might talk themselves into him. Like, I think he should be closer to 40% owned. So if he's 30, I think that's a discount on his ownership. And I am all in because he's going to top three and probably going to win unless someone goes absolutely bonkers.
Well, I've learned my lesson, man. I've learned my lesson. If he's there, I play him. That's it.
Yeah.
Gotta do it. Gotta figure it out.
First, second, first in his last five events. I think that's a pretty fair assessment you just made there.
Yeah, man. But we got to get Doc. One of these days, Doc will actually join us on the show. He's not in the money in our pool where I am. However, we've had 7 contests, Adam, so far. Do you know how many that he has picked the winner in his single DFS lineup?
Is it 5?
It's 4, but very close.
4.
That's pretty outstanding.
It seems like a lot. I do.
And they weren't all Scotty, just for the record.
Right. There's a couple guys I keep an eye on, their lineups in that league, and he's one of them. I have noticed that happening quite often.
That's true. All right, so let's get back down below there. Xander, man, I thought that I was going to win back-to-back tournaments in our league, and then Xander decided to par the entire Sunday.
Yeah, I think the question you have to ask yourself if you're looking at the rest of this 10,000 up range is, if someone plays their best, who has that ceiling to potentially compete with and potentially even beat Scotty? To me, there's only a couple guys that can do that. Xander, to me, is not one of them. Like, in these big events, he's just shown time and time again that he doesn't quite have what it takes to overtake these guys down the stretch. And I think it's an era where in majors, you're going to have these elite players, at least one of them, playing phenomenal golf, not making mistakes and making you come get them. They're not going to wilt down the stretch, but I think is kind of what would need to happen for Xander to win one of these majors. So the guys that I'm looking at here are actually Brooks and Ludwig. So I know Ludwig had a little bit of a knee tweak last week, or he had some swelling. Didn't sound like it was actually painful. He had a brace on yesterday. I guess he was kind of playing around with a little bit. But I think if that keeps the rostership percentage down, I am all for it. And then Brooks, he won Live his last week in Singapore, I think it was, and he did the same thing the week before the Masters last year, and then damn near won the thing before Ron ran away with it. But those two guys, I think their ceilings are right there with what Scotty can put together. I think you could make an argument for Rory. I just feel like Rory is sort of setting himself up for a letdown here, and I still don't love his game from the longer distances he's going to have into these greens, despite the fact that he's a phenomenal driver of the ball. So those are the guys I'm focused on up here. Ron, we just haven't seen enough from, and when we did see him at a big boy golf course, he kind of soiled his trousers.
So what's really interesting here from, just DFS theory standpoint, if you're trying to fade ownership, you've got Scotty probably coming in over 30. You got Rory going to come in the high 20s most likely. But what's really interesting here is to see 10K players. Like, I know Cantlay has been kind of a disappointment most of the year, kind of as an understatement. But we have a 10K guy at 6% projected ownership. It's pretty clear that the field is going to pick Scotty or Rory and then move down, because none of these guys outside of Brooks are even touching 15% projections, which is kind of wild for the top of the range. So it's very clear as of right now that Scotty's the play. And lots of people are doing that, and they're fading the rest of the top of this group. So, interesting. Morikawa under 10% owned. Cantlay, like I said, 6% owned. I mean, I've been burned by him this year a few times, but at 6% owned at the top of the field, it might make me at least look at it in an alternate lineup if I'm not going heavy at the top.
Yeah, I think if I was playing more lineups this week, right, that would be enticing. It is rare to see guys that price that highly that are not rostered 10% or more, and it's all gravitating towards Rory and Scotty. Which, if we know that, we also know there's not going to be a lot of guys in the 9K range played, because if they are.
Looking at the 9K range, pretty much the entire range is also under 10%, except for Bryson. Bryson is right there at about 15%. Neiman, I think. Man, I don't know about his 14%. I just don't feel like this is his game. But maybe you could talk me out of that, because he's one of my favorite players.
No, Neiman, I know you've been bummed that he went to live and you can't watch him as much as you used to, because you watch so much PGA Tour golf.
Every week religiously.
Yeah. Every Sunday you're on the couch. Honey, Katie, don't leave me alone. Kids, don't talk to me. Sausage McBiscuit, get on my lap. But at any rate, I think Bryson's garnering the most ownership here, projected for a good reason. It's a big boy golf course. It's going to kind of ask the questions that he has the answers to, as far as bombing it off the tee, being able to gouge it out of the rough when he misses a fairway with a shorter club. He's also got a very upright swing that's great for out of the rough. And he creates so much speed with his short irons too. That's another factor. He's got longer 9-iron and pitching wedge and gap wedge than the other guys do, so he can create more speed, and speed is what gets the ball out of that thick rough. So Bryson, he's the clear-cut number one in this range. I'm not even sure I can fade him despite that ownership, because 15 isn't too crazy. But Joaquin, I don't know. I think he's got to have a phenomenal week off the tee if he's going to give you what you need from him at 9,400. And he's not a phenomenal driver of the golf ball. So he scares me a little bit. I mean, his short game is very good. His putting has kind of been up and down. So he's not a guy that I'm looking to play at 14%. Would I bet him for a top 20? Sure. But this is not betting. We're playing against opponents. And if we know our opponents are putting 14% of their lineups with Neiman in it, I'm not really interested. So
why do we see a jump in price and ownership to Cam Young this week? It seems like a weird field for him to be at the 9K range.
That's a good question. I think it's mainly just because of his major performance. He's shown that he can really compete on these big golf courses. He had a fairly good finish at the Masters this year at T9, but before that, T8 at the Open last year, U.S. Open, T32nd, but 2023 Masters, T7, second at the Open Championship, third at the 2022 PGA. He's shown he can compete at these kind of courses, and I think DraftKings is maybe playing a little bit of a game with you here, because they know a lot of people are going to want to roster Cam Young in a major, so they put him up a little higher and say, all right, how much do you really want to put him in your lineup? Especially last week, he did not play well. I predicted, or I gave a little call that he would break through and get his first victory last week. He finished middle of the pack, T34, almost exactly from 69 players. So he's a guy that he can kind of find his form pretty quickly. At 10, 11% though, to me, he just doesn't have the short game and around the greens game. I think it's going to be a frustrating week for him, hitting a lot of approach shots into makeable birdie ranges and missing. And then the greens he misses, I kind of see him not getting up and down as often as you need.
Well, one thing you've been very accurate on this year, Adam, is your ability to Justin Thomas whisper.
Yeah, I'm good on that. You're right. He is what helped me win at the RBC, but I don't know. Hometown event, game isn't in all that good a shape. Dad's going to be there, a lot of family, a lot of friends. I just feel like it's too much pressure on him to perform. And, he does rise to the occasion sometimes in these spots, but I don't see it this week, even though, he played okay last week at the Wells Fargo. Like, he started off, he was up there in the top 10, and then he kind of faded over the weekend back to a T21 finish. I just haven't seen him do it at a golf course like this. Tell me his record in majors, right, since he won the 2022 PGA. Let me read it off for you. T37, T53, cut, T65, 3 straight cuts.
Nope, not good.
Does that sound good?
Not good.
Yeah, I'm out.
Not good. All right. Well, I mean, I'm going to play Scotty, so I'm really uninterested in the 9K range personally. So unless you want to highlight somebody that if you're not going to play heavy up top that you might want to start with, I think I got to get out.
I'm kind of with you. I could see an argument for Homa, but I think it's a big golf course. If it gets wet, he's going to struggle. Wyndham, he's long, but he's been sloppy lately. Zalatoris shot 80 last Sunday. 80. I don't think that's a good way to come into this event with confidence. So no, I'm kind of with you because I like two or three guys in this top end range. Really, Aberg and Scheffler I'm focused on. I'm going down below.
And then here's the biggest problem, my man, is Scheffler at 13-2. It even makes it difficult to play in the high 8K ranges.
It does.
So this is a difficult spot for me. I, planted that flag on Tony having a good week last week. That didn't come true. I've liked Thigala a lot recently. He spikes in the models in this range, and at 8,100, that puts him in the spot where I'm in considering my number 2 golfer, right? If I'm playing 13-2 at the top. But you didn't expand your thoughts on it, but you kind of poo-pooed me when I brought it up pre-show here. What's the deal? You don't like my man?
Sahith?
Yeah.
He would have to have an extraordinarily good week driving the ball to if he's your number 2, right? If Sahith is in the 7K range and you start balanced up, even if he's at 81, if you start balanced up top and you go, okay, I'm going to go Aberg and I'm going to go JT, whatever, just for example, then you could pop Sahith in and feel like you're not completely killing yourself down below. But if you need him to be your second highest scoring golfer after Scotty, I want a guy that makes you feel a little more comfy than Sahith does. He has surprised me in spots like RBC where you didn't necessarily expect him to contend. It was more of an approach game thing, but he was able to club down and kind of hit some fairways that week. The Players, very similar. So he's done well in some big events where the driver is taken out of his hands. Mm-hmm. But I haven't seen him do it on a course like this where, man, you got to be able to shape the ball both ways. You got to be able to, put it in play and kind of draw the ball against the left to right sloping fairway and vice versa. I just don't think he has the game off the tee, and he's never had a top 25 in either the U.S. Open or the PGA. I know he's a young player, but major championship golf is just different than week in, week out PGA Tour golf. Yeah. So for me, I'd rather see a guy, and I think a lot of people are going to go this route where they go Scotty and then down to Hatton.
Yeah.
Or down to Fleetwood. I think I'd be surprised.
I think a lot of these people are thinking like us here, Adam, because if you just look at projected ownerships that we're looking at data golf right now, like it's possibility nobody in the 8K range hits 9 or 10%.
Well, I think if Scotty goes up into the mid 30s, then I think you're going to have more people clicking on Fleetwood and Hatton because it's just kind of that natural dip down where you go, ooh, 9K, my rest of salary looks nasty. Okay, I can live with Hatton. So I think we'll probably see these guys end up a little higher than they're projected right now. If you go Scotty and Hatton, you've got 7,150 remaining. Some viable guys in the 5K range, which is back, by the way. Can't wait. You can stomach that. You can look at that and go, all right, I can still get some guys in there that are major contenders. Mm-hmm. But if you start Scotty and then anybody in the 9K, like we mentioned, it's tough to put something together that you actually like looking at.
Well, I make notes as we go through this and I list players that we talk positively about. And, where I start looking at my lineups, I will tell you my list so far contains Scotty and DeChambeau.
That's it.
That's all I've written down so far, man, because I think I'm going to play Scotty and I ain't going to have room for any of these people. So until we get down into that 6 and 5K range where you give me some value, and then I can see where my last pick leaves me to move back up, I got nothing right now. Shall we continue?
Yeah, let's continue. I did find myself working sort of bottom to top this week when figuring out the guys I wanted to pinpoint, because I know I'm playing Scotty. Like, there's no reason not to play Scotty. So if I know that, I better find some values in the 5 and 6K range. So that's where I dug deep first,
right,
and then sort of worked my way up to the guys that I'm, whose games I'm more familiar with.
Right. Well, let's keep going down. So the next range is where I live, man. It's where I live. It's where my players are, man. You know where I'm going. I don't care if it's chalk. You know me. I'll eat the chalk when I need to. Benny Ann and Siwoo Kim just pop. They pop as like top 5 leverage plays for me this week. So I think I got to play them both. They've been good to me. I've been good to them. I haven't smacked them. I haven't done any smack talk. I've been very nice and pleasant. I think it's Benny Ann and Siwoo Kim to start my lineup for me, and then work around those guys. Is that a fallacy? Should I not do that?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you even played Benny Ann during Kim week.
I did. I played 4 of 6 Kims. 2 of the 4 or of the 6 Kims missed the cut. Sadly, both were in my lineup. But I won that week anyways, so it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Strong in Texas that week, sir.
Yes. The South Korean contingent was strong.
Yes,
I'm with you here. I do like a lot of guys in the 7K range. I find myself with 2, maybe 3 7K players in my lineup, depending where I start up top. I'm playing Benny Ann. He's been playing so well, and he had a little bit of a lull before the Masters, and just his skill set was too much to pass up on in the 6K range at that point. I'm still cool with him at 78. His putter came alive the last 2 weeks. If he has a normal week, tee to green, and then has a hot putter like he has the last 2 weeks, like, look out. He could legitimately top 5 in this event. So I love his upside there. Siwoo, I don't know. I'm not as high on him, just because it's going to be a very difficult week for him to hit a lot of greens and give himself a lot of opportunities, because he's not a long hitter, and it's supposed to storm down there. The fairways are going to be soft. So he's going to find himself in a lot of these situations where he's got long approach shots in. Now, I think if he plays well, his ceiling is sort of in the 25th to 35th range. I don't see him with the skill set to top 20 this week. I really don't. So I don't mean to burst your bubble there. He could still do it. He's pretty good from that 175 to 250 range. But I think over the course of 4 rounds, hitting those long approach shots, missing some greens, putting a lot of pressure on his short game, which is good, but that's just too much for me to say I want to play him at 7K.
All right. Well, the next 2 guys that pop up in my model at 77 and 73, Minwoo Lee and Russell Henley. And it looks like the field is kind of on Lee. It looks like Henley might be a little underowned.
Yeah, I'll be brief with those. Minwoo is just too erratic. Approach game isn't there for me. He is a long hitter, very, very long hitter, one of the longest out there. And so I'm off of him. But Henley, kind of the same thing as we talked about with Siwoo. Puts too much pressure on his long game, which is good, but I just don't like it, especially pushing 10% rostership. You skipped right over Coco.
Well, we're not there yet. There's a lot of people here. I want to talk a minute about a player that I have let you poo me out of on 2 different occasions this year, sir. 2 times. The one time you said to play him, he missed the cut. The 2 times I said I want to play him, you poo-pooed it. In Sepp Straka last week, heck of a round of golf. You said nay. I had him in my lineup. I took him out. Look what happened.
Yeah, I do like Sepp a lot this week. I would play Sepp over Siwoo straight up, let alone the $200 discount that you get with Sepp. He's been playing some great golf, particularly in majors. Played very well at the Masters. Finished second last year at the British Open. Like, give it to me. And I'm sorry, Danger. I'm sorry. It's okay. We can play the other SS this week. Oh, we could do an all SS lineup.
Oh, we could.
No, we couldn't, but we could try.
We can get pretty close.
But if you start with SS and you go down to Sepp, I'm looking for guys with major pedigree. Corey Connors has that. Another guy with the same first initial as last. The other guy that I like who's really starting to show a little bit in majors, had a great first round this year at the Masters, is Nikolai Højgaard. So he's one of the longest players out here. He's a good driver of the golf ball when he's on, and he's extremely long. So he's a guy I could see creating some birdie opportunities on this golf course that most players are not capable of. You know, when I say that, it's hitting a drive long enough to have a short iron into a front pin, right? Tucked over a bunker. Guys like Russell Henley be hitting 7 irons to that green. They're not getting it within 15 feet. They're settling for a 30-footer. Højgaard can hoist an iron up in the air with a 9 iron where Henley's hitting 7 and stop it quickly on the green. So that's the kind of skill set that I'm looking for this week. Another guy that you've asked me about several times, and I've said yes sometimes, I've said no sometimes, but Akshay at 72, little lower rostership percentage at 5.5 projected. I'm coming around to Akshay.
Man, he's got like a bottom 3 projected score in this range, though. Man, I don't know. Ugh.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I just like his trajectory. I like his pedigree. Like his approach game is fantastic. His driver does scare me. He's like Sahith light a little bit in that regard. And he did lose a ton of strokes last week off the tee. But his approach game.
How about Adam Schenk, though? Schenk's been good to us down at 7K and projected like completely and utterly unowned.
Yeah,
is that somebody I can get behind when I'm going to go chalk with my first 3 picks?
No, Schenk I'm not super interested in. The guy that I also like down here at the bottom. So we talked about Akshay. We got a few other guys here in the 7K range. We talked about who we don't like. But I actually like Keegan.
Okay.
I actually like Keegan. So he had a very good week last week. He's gained well over a stroke, almost a stroke and a half per week in his last three events. The putter's been okay. It's been kind of hot and cold. He's had some good finishes in majors of late. So the T7 at the 2022 U.S. Open, T22 with the Masters this year, that was very quiet. Had a nice Sunday 69. Very nice. And then he had a T29 last year at this very event. So, and that was a big boy golf course that Brooks won at. I like Keegan this week. I think he gives you some good leverage. And if any of these guys, like if these super high owned guys don't hit, I think he's one of the guys who's going to end up there. And at 5% or less, I like that a lot for a veteran who's won this event as well.
I like it. All right, getting down into the 6Ks, my friend. We're running long. I got to get out of here. I know you got things to do in Chicago, so we'll pick up the pace here. A couple of guys that pop in my model, I'll just ask you flat out. I got Bezuidenhout. I'm not going back to Poston. It ain't happening. He burned me last week. He hurt me bad. Can Jake Knapp stay hot? And how about my neighbor, Taylor Moore?
Taylor Moore. Those are all no's for me.
No flies for you? All right, good.
Yeah, those are all no's for me. Because I knew, like, I wrote him up last week. He's a phenomenal putter, but this week I just don't see him creating enough opportunities. The 6K range to me comes down to, do you Denny, do you Keith Mitchell, or do you not? And it's not quite the same extent, but when you have a 10% roster dude down here in the 6Ks, or a couple of them, those are, we've talked about this before, those are auto fades for me.
Yeah.
Like, unless Benny On was sitting down here in the 6K range and you're like, DraftKings, what are you doing? No, I'm not playing that. So Keith, I can see the merit for over Denny. Denny's a phenomenal putter, but relies on that too much for my taste. So those two guys are fades mainly just because of ownership. I like Kitayama again. I don't love him, but I do like him. And I do love Mr. Cam Davis.
All right.
We can get on a Cam here. I know you're always on board with the Cams, but
you know it. So when I look down here, a lot of times what I'll do is just think back to fond memories of players who just had solid runs at some point in life, right? So one of the names that pops up here for me is Harris English.
Yeah, I've been on Harry for much of the year. Was on him at the Masters. Played quite a bit of him. I do like Harris English. I think the only way I would get off of at 6,500, it's extremely enticing. Like, he was in the 7Ks when we played him at Augusta. The only thing that would get me off him is if we see a lot of rain and storms come through and it's going to be wet. He's not a long driver of the ball. Now, he's good in that 175 to 200 range, but that would put a lot of pressure on him. He's not a big birdie maker. He's going to be the guy who, like, makes 4 birdies and 2 bogeys in a good round out there. Just does the veteran thing and avoids making bogeys, but doesn't rack up birdies. So I think Cam Davis gives you the upside to make a lot of birdies pretty effortlessly with the skill set we talked about with Højgaard too. Long player, hits the driver very, very straight. So I like his upside better, but I think Harris is a great cash play. Like if you need someone down below where you're like, all right, I need someone who's going to make the cut, probably finish somewhere between 30th and 50th. Cool. Harris English is your dude all day long. I'm not saying he doesn't have a ceiling above that, but it's hard for me to see it happening.
Detry, Glover, anyone down here at the bottom? I see they added the last minute CT Pan. I know that you have a soft spot for him for winning you money once.
It's true, but it was not at a major, so CT is of no interest to me. The guys you got to talk about, I mean, Detry, I'm not interested in. He's a little too erratic off the tee. Glover, though, Glover's a safe bet, much like we talked about with Harris English. He's won a major before. He started to pop up a little bit here and there in these majors, playing better golf the last year or so.
What about Billy Ho?
Yeah, Billy Ho is he's dead to me after last week. I actually typed out his name and wrote some positive things about him, and he just absolutely DFL'd. It was brutal. But Taylor Pendrith, like, dude, won 2 weeks ago, came back the following week. He's finally healthy off of some injuries. Came back the next week at a big golf course and finished T10. Was T11 the 2 events before that. I don't know why you wouldn't keep on him riding that heater at 61 or 6K even. But that's really where my interest down below here stops. I think we can transition now into the 5K range.
I like a couple of interesting names in here. You know where I want to talk about. You know it. I'm going to will it to happen. I want Austin Eckroat. I need him. I want him. I like it. I want it. I need it.
You gotta have it.
Not to play him, aren't you?
You want it, you need it, you gotta have it. Yeah, the Eckgoat, I'm not necessarily interested in. It's 5,800. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, it's a terrible play. A guy that can have some elite approach play is always worthy of playing. His off the tee game has been a little better, but man, he struggles around the greens. And I think this week we're gonna see a lot less greens hit in regulation. It's going to put a lot more pressure on your short game. So I'm looking for guys.
God, sir, if you tell me Victor Perez one more week, I'm going to ban you from talking about him.
Oh, it's happening, buddy. It's happening. It's happening. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. Look, he is. Let me just make the argument for Victor Perez.
He has missed the cut every time you've ever talked me into him.
Okay, that's like some type of bias on your part. It's not true. Not true at all. Victor Perez is ranked 32nd in my model, and for a guy down in the deep in the hundreds, I'm all for it.
But does your model read like tee to green, approach shot? Your name is Victor Perez. Is that how your model is built?
No,
that's what I want to know, dude.
So he's about average in the field from 175 to 200. He's well above average in about the 75th percentile in this field as far as ball speed goes. So he is a longer hitter. Very solid as far as greens and reg. Strokes gained approach overall is very good. The weak points around the green, he's not good. He's not good. But he is an okay putter. So add all that up. I think you got a guy who he's not going to contend. There's a reason why he is 5,700. But I think you have a guy who could go out there, and he hits some nice high floating long irons.
So gross.
No,
I'm probably going to do it too. That's the worst part is I'm going to do it again, Adam.
I got to rank dead even with Cam Smith and Kurt Kitayama, and just behind Max Homa. Like his skill set does work out pretty well for this course. But let's move on. I like Perez. You don't. Write it down.
I hate it. Hey, does it mean that we've made it as a content creation show when we get these kind of comments? Look at the screen. We're starting to get spam scammers. That means we've made it, right? Yeah.
Let's go. You're right. Look at us. I think it's got to be the fireplace.
That's right. 100% the fireplace this time.
It's the only explanation.
I love
Now,
it. All right, man. I mean, I don't know. This is, you know me, man. This is all a crapshoot down here. We always end up talking about EVR. We always talking about Luke List. You know, this is where we get. You know, we got Toasty in the lineup down here. Come on, what do we got? I gotta get out of here. Give me some gold.
I love the disdain in your voice as you're like, I know we're going to talk about EVR. Fucking EVR. No, I like Victor. Outside of that, you could make an argument for the other Højgaard, Mr. Rasmus, to make the cut and make some noise. Ben Griffin's been playing some very, very good golf. He is viable at 5,700. And the one that I first saw in my model pop a little bit and kind of went, ugh, was Patrick Rogers. Now, we've talked about P-Rog in the past. Much, much better at longer golf courses where the winning score is not going to be super deep. So,
well, he's the second highest leverage scorer according to this model.
Yeah, I'm in on P-Rog. Like if I go P-Rog and Victor, maybe get a little Cam in there. I think I have 3 somewhat similar skill sets, and then I could build my top 3 from there because you want guys that are long, they could hit some high long irons and at least rack up some birdies if they make the cut, right? These are not guys you expect to top 20 and plod their way around and you know, fire a bogey-free round, but you want guys who can at least create a lot of scoring opportunities, which is what DraftKings is all about. You know, like good example, Patrick Reed finished T12 at the Masters. I think it was. He was in my lineup, but he did nothing as far as vaulting up the leaderboard because he was making no birdies. You had Højgaard, who finished, I think, behind him, but Højgaard made a crap ton of birdies, a couple eagles. He was like 15, 20 points ahead of him. So it's not always about finish on the leaderboard. It's about DraftKings points. So you want guys that can make some birdies. Those are the guys that stood out to me. I don't really see anybody else necessarily worth mentioning. Don't even bring up Emiliano Grillo, please. You always do. Please don't bring him up.
I didn't say it. I moved on to bring up Toasty every time he's in the line.
Yeah, just not a major player. But no, there's nobody else really that I'm super interested in. A couple cut makers, you could see S.H. Kim, Shohun King making the cut, but I don't see him doing much over the course of 72 holes.
All right, buddy. Well, we got to get it out. So are we just doubling up on Scotty at the top? Are we both just signing off on it and calling it a day?
Doubling up on a dude like him? No, I'll go Lud. I'll go Ludwig.
All right. All right. Well, you know I can't abandon Benny Ann, so I got to take him off the board for my mid-range pick.
Yeah, I do like Benny quite a bit. I do like that pick. We didn't even talk about Hideki, man. We didn't even mention Hideki.
No, it pissed me off.
He was in my lineup last week. Obviously, I'm still pissed off too. I'll go Ty Hatton as my mid-range pick, 8,200.
All right, I like Ty. We didn't talk about him, but I like him. And for the down there, I think I'm going to stick with Lucas Glover. I think I'm going to stick with old reliable in my lower range guy. I think he's going to make the cut. I think he's going to make some points for me, and he's going to help fill in the bottom of my lineup. Lucas Glover.
Old reliable. You can have the old guy. I will go with a young guy in Cam Davis. He's 29. He's not that young, but he's young enough.
I like Cam too. I have him circled in the check marks there. I like that. And I'm with you, man. I was going to bring him up if you didn't. So my tipsy pick, the 5K range, P-Raj coming home.
And you get to go first on that?
Yeah.
Just for the sake of fun, since you called him out before I even had a chance to mention his name and make my case for him. I'll go Victor Perez.
Dude, I wrote that down at the beginning of the show. I wrote it in the slot at the beginning of the show.
Do I have a Perez bias? Is this
you do?
Is this like a tell? You know when he's priced down in a certain range in a major, I'm going to play him.
You've got it. Yeah, but this is what's going to happen: is I'm going to put him in my lineup. You're going to talk yourself out of him, and then he's going to finish top 10 from me. That's what's going to happen. I like it.
That would.
All right, buddy. Do you have any bets you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's a couple. Like I have a hard time.
We were going to go short today, and we're 10 minutes long already.
Yeah, so. I haven't a problem betting outrights when Scotty's in the field because I feel like anything I click, I'm like, hey, let's just light some money on fire.
Yeah. By the way, did you see that I put an outright on Xander last week?
Oh, I did not.
I did.
I'm sorry for your loss. It had to. At least you knew.
It was like up by 5 going into Sunday.
and he's leading by, he makes that eagle on 6. You're all fired up. No, I like Ludwig at 22. It's like you're just trying to talk yourself into guys that could possibly win in this range. Let's go Fleetwood at 50. Fleetwood 50 to 1 feels, I don't know. He feels due in a major. If Scotty doesn't play his best golf and no one goes crazy, he could potentially do it.
Right on. Hey man, we gotta get out of here. I love you, but we gotta go. You got things to do in the great city of Chicago.
We do.
I gotta go do my day job. You know, we got things to do, buddy.
We got brunch rezos, buddy.
Oh, I love it.
Brunch rezos.
I love it. All right, man. Well, get out of here. On behalf of drroto.com, this has been In the Cup. Make sure you head over to drroto.com, see Adam's complete and thorough breakdown of the PGA Championship, along with Lou Landers, who is like number 1 in the biggest fantasy baseball competition in the nation right now. So you need fantasy baseball stuff. We got you. We got everything you need. We got people breaking down the draft and the team outlooks for the NFL. We got it all over drroto.com. Until we meet again, my friends. Peace.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well.